Good evening. We would like to call this meeting to order. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Kingman City Council held on Tuesday, February 6, 2024. We'd like to turn some time over to our city clerk, Annie Meredith, for roll call.
Thank you, Mayor Watkins. Mayor Watkins.
Present.
Vice Mayor Samley.
Here.
Councilmember Eric.
Present.
Councilmember Savage.
Here.
Councilmember Scott Staley.
Present.
Councilmember Walker.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I would like to invite those who would like to participate in our invocation, if we could stand, and then after that remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. And that will be given tonight by Pastor Ken Miller of the Grace Lutheran Church.
Gracious God, thank you for your presence here and in this city. Give wise and discerning leaders. Help us to care for and maintain our communities. Guide us to steward the land and resources you have given us. Help us to promote your justice so all may live in peace. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier before this meeting, we had a lot of people here, and they were here for item 6A on our agenda, and that item has been withdrawn from our agenda tonight. So just to make that announcement. The council may go into executive session for legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431.03A3 to discuss any agenda item. The following items may be discussed, considered, and decisions made relating thereto. Item number 1A, appointments. Transit Advisory Commission appointment. The Transit Advisory Commission currently has one vacancy with a term ending December 31st, 2026. One application from Aaron Kelly has been received and provided for review to the council liaison, city manager, and staff. Residency and voter registration status have been verified. Staff recommends the appointment of Aaron Kelly to the Transit Advisory Commission for a term ending December 31st, 2026. Councilor Staley, this is the commission you are assigned to?
Yes, I'm happy to see an applicant. I wondered if Aaron Kelly was here tonight. No, okay. I reviewed Aaron Kelly's application, and I think that it'll be a great fit for the Transportation Commission. So I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we approve the application of Aaron Kelly to be added to the Transit Advisory Commission.
Thank you. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 2, awards recognition. 2A, proclamation of women making history. And of course, I know we have some representatives from that commission or that committee here tonight, and we're welcome. We're glad to have you here. And I'd like to read this proclamation. Whereas American women from all walks of life have improved their communities and our nation, standing resolute in the face of adversity and overcoming obstacles to realize their full measure of success. And American women play a critical economic, cultural, and social role in every sphere of our nation's life. Beyond serving as a vital part of the labor force, American women have served as early leaders in the forefront of every progressive social change movement, securing their own right of suffrage and equal opportunity, and contributing to movements which secure the rights of people of all races, classes, and ethnic backgrounds. And we honor and carry forth the legacy of the women who have shaped our nation as we teach our daughters to persevere through obstacles and inspire them to reach for their highest aspirations and achieve true equality. Now therefore, I, Ken Watkins, Mayor of the City of Kingman, do hereby proclaim the month of March to be designated as Women's History Month, and specifically designate Sunday, March 3rd, 2024, as Women Making History Day. And in doing so, urge all citizens to join me in honoring the history and contributions of American women and the important roles they have played in the growth of our nation, state, and our city. And of course, it's signed and then signed by our city clerk. So once again, this is a great thing. I know we've done it the last couple of years. Well, actually, I think we've been doing it for a long time.
40 years, not all with you.
No, but I am glad to be a part of this heritage and that you women are here making a change in our community and a huge positive change. So we're glad to have that. Yes, of course. And I was going to invite all of you and council, if you'd like to stand up behind us too for a photo op, that'd be great. We're good. We'll tuck you in.
You're gonna have to stack and side because we're, yeah. All right, can you side next to me, like, pop this shoulder out, that way you guys can like stagger the side, there you go. That allows you to see the shit a little bit more. Smiley and Councilmember Eric also. A bunch of.
Get rid of all the wrinkles, Rusty.
I don't see wrinkles.
Oh, yeah.
I got some. Good, there's your smile one.
You get enough there?
I did, I got some. Now I got.
I'm good.
Do one more, because that'll be the best one. Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Once again, we are proud to recognize the great women that live in our community and make such a difference every day in our lives. Item number 3, call to the public, comments from the public. Those wishing to address the council should fill out request forms in advance. Comments from the public will be restricted to items not on the agenda, with the exception of those on the consent agenda. There will be no comments allowed that advertise for a particular person or group. Comments should be limited to no longer than 3 minutes. The council may not respond to speakers during the call to the public. The council may direct the city manager to study the matter or request that the matter be placed on a future agenda. First, we have Mr. Thomas Clark, if you'd like to come forward. Welcome, Mr. Clark.
Good evening, council. It's nice to be back and see you all again. Last time we met on January 16th, I provided the city council members with a reprint of a document entitled 50 Reasons to Oppose Fluoridation. I'm sure by now you've all read it. This past Friday, I also emailed an article to the council members entitled Sworn Testimony and Official Documents Confirm Fluoride's Health Risks. The egregious levels of fluoridation in Kingman's groundwater is so serious, I believe the situation rises to the level of a public health crisis. Keep in mind, Kingman's fluoride level is 2.5 times the recommended safe level. A public health crisis is a difficult situation or a complex health system that affects humans in one or more geographic areas or from a particular locality encompassing the entire planet. Health crises generally have significant impacts on community health. They may result from disease, industrial processes, or in Kingman's case, dangerous levels of fluoride in the groundwater. Generally, there are 3 components in a health crisis. The first being a public health problem, and that would be excessive fluoridation in the groundwater. The second is a public health coordination, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that Kingman has any program in place to reduce the fluoride level in the groundwater. And third being poor communications of risk to the population. There are also 3 types of public health crises, one being environmental, that would be the fluoride, 2, food, not applicable, and 3 is toxic, and we're back to fluoride again. So let's explain why a public health crisis. Consensus in the dental resource community, the CDC, and the EPA is that fluoride does not need to be swallowed. The exclusive benefit is from topical applications, such as by your dentist or by toothpaste. The CDC found no benefit to the child if the mother ingested fluoridated water. In fact, an amount above 0.05 parts per million was actually harmful to the child. The CDC agrees that fluoride directly affects the brain, particularly the developing brain, as well as the thyroid and bones. Bone damage consists of weakness, fractures, and arthritis. Allowing high levels of fluoride in the water supply does not address the individual personal factors like nutrition, genetics, and kidney function. Additionally, it does not address those people most vulnerable from suffering its harm. On May 18, 2022, the National Toxicology Program found a direct link between fluoride and IQ. Interestingly enough, the Department of Health and Human Services and the CDC buried that report. This was a gold star
Mr. Clark.
standard.
Your 3 minutes are up, I'm sorry.
What?
Your 3 minutes are up.
Okay, I've got
So,
one paragraph.
I know, well, I think this is very similar to what you read before, isn't it, last?
Totally
meeting?
different, totally different.
Council, do I hear the remainder of the other paragraph?
I can come back and do it later.
Why don't we plan on another time?
Okay,
Okay,
I'll see you next week, in 2 weeks on anyway.
great. Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Clark. And once again, staff has, recognized your concerns, and I'm sure one of them will be in touch with you again. Thank you. Ms. Gwen Gilman? Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you all have a copy of what I gave you as far as Seneca. I've lived on Seneca. My husband and I designed and built our house on Seneca 25 years ago this month. And I have found that at this time, Seneca is the most heavily traveled residential street in the city. I actually refer to it as the Seneca Speedway. 25-mile speed limit, largely ignored by vehicles. And we're talking big trucks, semis, all sorts of, different vehicles. It's a 1.1-mile street between Wallapai Mountain Road and Southern Street running north-south. 5 washes run through Seneca, creating dust and dirt, which create flood and slide conditions. 5 small hills or hillocks run through that 1.1-mile street and create blind spots to oncoming traffic. 5 residential streets, Beaver, Dakota, Delaware, Cheyenne, and Pack Saddle on the east side merge onto Seneca to access Wallapai Mountain Road. These side streets have stop signs. Ongoing complaints to police department over the past 25 years we've lived here. Even with the complaints from residents, no improvements have been made to the problem, safety of the cars, and the legal speed limit. Cars have passed me numerous times on the bottom of a blind spot going the same direction I am when they cannot see ahead, what's ahead at the top of the hill. Complaints have been called in and have largely been ignored, except with the exception of the police putting in those "your speed is" electronic signs for a few days or a month maybe. Each time they have them, they come back that show a higher speed limit and a larger percentage of cars going up and down Seneca. Complaints, let's see. These speed limit signs don't even really slow the traffic down that much. It's like, yeah, whatever, nobody's gonna stop me anyway. Driver's speed is probably double the posted speed limit, which includes cars, motorcycles, semis, hauling gravel, trucks, etc. Even school buses seem to ignore the posted speed limit. The more homes being built means more traffic speeders on Seneca. The solution, in my opinion, is to put all-way stop signs on side streets of Cheyenne, Dakota, Delaware, and Beaver to slow traffic down on Seneca, which they are all merging into. These side streets are the ones with the 5 blind hillocks. I sincerely hope this matter will be rectified to make Seneca a safer street to travel. I have a little bit more, but you have it.
We have the paper. Ms. Gilman, we will make sure city staff has a copy of this. I'm sure you've given it to them already.
Chief Cooper, do you have a copy?
Thank you, Ms. Gilman. Mr. Gary Wetmore?
Good afternoon, Council. My wife and I are here to address the city with concerns for an unauthorized ATV and motocross track located behind our home at 3202 Courtney Avenue and Fripp's Ranch. We have lived in the city of Kingman at this residence for 21 years and in Mojave County for 37 years. We are bringing the property behind us to your attention. We have included a copy of the assessor owner information and the GIS maps of the property we are complaining about. As you can see on the map that I'll leave for you, there's clearly a racetrack behind us. Daily, we are exposed to noise and dust from the use of this property. The racetrack users go flying down unimproved Karen Avenue right behind our home and then circle around to the track on a constant basis. We have called the police in the past. They show up and run them off, only for them to return the next day. We have lost the right to the quiet enjoyment of our home. We cannot open our windows for fresh air. We sometimes will be out trying to barbecue in our backyard with ATVs and dirt bikes racing past our home, kicking up dust with no regard for the neighborhood. The property owner should be notified of the current use of this 17.34 acre property. It's only a matter of time before there is a serious accident that happens on this property and someone gets hurt. We wonder who the responsible parties will be in the case of a serious injury or death from the misuse of this property. We hope the city takes this complaint seriously, as we are quite sure that we're not the only neighbors to this property that are fed up with the noise and dust nuisance. And with that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wetmore. Item number 4, consent agenda. All matters listed here are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Councilors, we have items A through E. Is there anything that needs to be pulled and discussed? Okay, seeing none, can we have a motion then approving our consent agenda?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 5, under old business, we have none. Item number 6B, public hearing on the fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023 development fee biennial audit report. In fiscal year 2022, the city of Kingman began charging fire, police, parks, and streets development fees. Arizona Revised Statutes, ARS 9-463.05, contains statutory guidance, restrictions, and requirements governing the assessment, collection, and reporting of development fees. One of the reporting options allowed within the state statute and adopted as part of our city's development fee ordinance, Ordinance 1928, is to provide for a biennial certified audit of the city's land use assumptions, the LUA. Infrastructure Improvements Plan, IIP, and development fees. The city hired Wilden Financial Services to conduct the fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023 biennial certified audit of the city's development fees. ARS 9-463.05 requires that the city conduct a public hearing on the audit within 60 days of the release of the audit to the public. The report was posted on the city's website on December 27, 2023. Staff recommends council hold the public hearing to provide the public an opportunity to respond to the completion of the development fee biennial audit report. our acting city manager, Tina Moline.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. We have Kevin Burnett, I believe, on the Zoom with us tonight, who will be sharing the process that he used when he performed the audit, and then just covering some quick items within the audit, and then give, of course, the public an opportunity to speak. And the public hearing is a requirement of the statute. We're not looking necessarily for action or approval of an item. We're just required to hold the public hearing. So with that, I'll hand it over to Kevin.
All right. Thanks, Tina. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay.
We do.
Good. Perfect. It's nice to be with you all again tonight, even if it's virtual as opposed to in person. So as Tina said, I was the one that conducted the biennial audit for your development fees. So it is called an audit, but we generally think of it more as a check-in. So it's not like the financial audit that the city has to go through every year. It's not an IRS audit, anything of that nature. When you adopted your development impact fees, your development fees, they were based on a 10-year projection of the capital needs over the next 10 years, what growth was going to be over the next 10 years. So this is just a check-in for the first 2 years of since the study was adopted, just to see how the city's progressing compared to what was in the development fee report. Bearing in mind that the development fee report was based on the best available information at the time, and there's going to be some changes between what was projected and what actually happened. So the state statute requires that we look at 3 different pieces. So I'll go through them. There's an additional 4th piece that isn't required by the state statute, but we like to do anyways. So the first piece was looking at the land use assumptions. So what did the study project you were going to do in terms of new development, in terms of residential development, commercial development, office industrial? How do you compare to where you're at today versus what was projected? The city did experience a bit of a slowdown since the study was conducted and published. So your actual development has fallen a little bit short of what the study anticipated for the next 2 years. Again, bearing in mind that that was based on the best available information at the time, and we're looking at a 10-year period. So for example, if we were in year 8 of the 10-year study period and you'd only built 5% of what was projected in the study, I would have some concerns with the level of development. But the fact that we're at only at year 2, you're a little bit behind, but conversations with city staff indicates that development's expected to tick up in the near future. We don't have any concerns that you're a little bit behind where you were projected to be. The second piece that we're required to look at is in terms of the capital needs that were anticipated. So as the city continues to grow, you need to add park acreage, you need to expand the roadway system, you need new police facilities, new police vehicles, that sort of thing. So it identifies the investments that should be made into the different systems throughout the 10-year study period. This is related to the first point that we were just talking about. Development didn't occur quite as rapidly as we anticipated. With developing not occurring as fast as we anticipated, that means you don't generate the revenues quite as quickly as was anticipated. So you need to have those revenues in order to build the new roads, to expand the police force, to increase park acreage. So at this point in time, the city has not expended any development fee funds, which is okay. The main issue that we would be looking for in this case is, are you properly tracking where those revenues came in? So if a development paid a roadways development fee, is that revenue being tracked separately in a roadways category so that it can only be used for roadway expansion going forward? And city staff has done that, so we don't have any concerns with the tracking of the funds, nor do we have any concerns that you're a little bit behind what the study suggested you should be doing in terms of investment in expanding the systems. The third piece that the state statute requires us to look at is the level of service. So what they're trying to do there is make sure that you're not asking development to increase the overall level of service for different facilities and expanding it for everybody. So for example, if your current level of service was 5 acres of parks for every 1,000 residents, we can't ask new development to put in 10 acres of park for every 1,000 new residents that are coming into the city. So that's what we're looking at there. Again, we're looking at it over the 10-year period. So another example, so if we were to have a level of service of one fire truck for every 1,000 residents, and we've added 100 residents in the 2-year period, we can't really go out and buy 10% of a fire truck. We either buy the full fire truck or we don't buy it at all. We can't buy portions of it. So within the 10-year period, there's going to be periods where growth has occurred, but we have not yet made the investment in the system. So the level of service is going to go down until we do make that investment. And then that'll bring the level of service up to where it's supposed to be. Or alternatively, we can invest in expanding the system ahead of time before the development comes in which case we've exceeded what our level of service is, but it will be drawn down over time to get to that equilibrium that it should be. So as I say this, again, it's looking at the 10-year period. So the fact that you're a little bit behind on your level of service right now because you haven't made the investments into the system, that's not a concern to us at this point. We're only 2 years in. Again, if we were in year 8 or year 9 and we were out of whack with the level of service, that would be more concerning to us, but we're not there. So those are the 3 pieces that are required by the state statute. The 4th piece that I mentioned that we like to do is we take a random sample of the permits that were issued and we look at the development fees that were paid. So we're just doing another double check here, another set of eyes, if you will, to make sure if it was a single family development, were they charged the single family fee or were they mistakenly charged the multifamily fee? If a development was supposed to pay 6 cents per square foot for a fire development impact fee, was it accidentally keyed in as 5 cents per square foot? We didn't see anything of that nature. The random samples that we took, everything matched up. The fees were appropriate. So based on our review of the first 2-year snapshot, you are a little bit behind where the studies said you would be. Again, it was based on the best available information at the time. We don't have any concerns that the city won't catch up or that you're going to be too far behind the 8 ball, if you will, as you progress forward through the study. So as far as we're concerned, you're in complete compliance with the state statutes, and we don't have any issues with where you're at this point in time.
Kevin, thank you for that report. And of course, we're glad that we are in compliance. That's the most important thing. Council, any questions for Kevin? Or Tina, as far as that goes? Okay, thanks again for that update. We need to open a public hearing in case there is any public comment. So I'd like to open this public hearing on, Carl, do you need me to read the whole thing again, or part of it? So we're good. Okay. So on our development fees biennial audit report, is there anybody that would like to comment here in chambers? Okay. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Once again, thanks for being here for that. Council, any other? I think we're good. Okay. Kevin, once again, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 6C, Residential District 1, chip seal invoice and agreement update with Mojave County. This item is for payment approval for chip seal services rendered by Mojave County for Residential District 1. This work was completed under the Work-Share Intergovernmental Agreement, IGA, terms. As such, goods or services will be billed at the actual cost to the agency. The Mojave County Road Crew completed around 265,000 square yards of chip seal. Materials were procured and paid for by the city. The attached invoice reflects the labor and equipment utilized during the completion of the chip seal. Staff recommends approval. Jack, welcome. Glad to have you here tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. So as it says in the packet, I included a couple items. The first one was the IGA we have in Mojave County, which is our work share agreement. And that gives us the ability to share resources back and forth and then ultimately bill if they're not equal. In this instance with the chip seal, that's the case. And so there's also a map of the northern half of, approximately half of Residential District 1 that was completed by Mojave County. And so the invoice that's attached is, as it says, for the goods and services. Labor and material. Ugh. See if I can screw it up 3 times. For the labor and equipment needed to complete the chip seal application. The contracts that you had approved for us prior to that, we actually procured the aggregate and we procured the binder, the emulsion that we put down under the rock. And so this invoice is just what it is, so we can get Mojave paid up based on our work share agreement for the work they completed for us. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Council, any questions for Mr. Plante? Okay. I think that's it, Jack. Thanks again for all that work on that. And we see the totals on the paperwork that we see. Okay. We need a motion then approving the payment of this invoice to Mojave County. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll
Thank
second.
you, Vice Mayor. Thank you, Councilor Savage. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 7, department reports. 7A, fiscal year 24 pavement preservation update. Jack, good to see you again.
Yeah, long time no see. Thanks for having me back again. So this is an update on where we are, the work we've completed for quarters 1 and 2 of the fiscal year, just to be clear, not the calendar year. So this is work that was completed since July of this year. And if you go ahead and switch that for me, Amy. So this, the map you're looking at right now was the 23-24 year package we put together. The one that was completed in there was Andy Devine between 5th Street and Grandview. That was actually completed in the last fiscal year. But the work that's shown here is all the work we were anticipating. One item I'd like to highlight, we talked about it a little bit when we changed over and we brought the contract for Residential District 3 crack seal. That, with some of the scheduling, we were pushing Residential District 2 out. Right now, we're anticipating that to be in the fall. And so we're working on our build out of our projects for next fiscal year, so those are packaged up and ready to go. Still working with Mojave County on scheduling and things, so either contract or Mojave County, our goal is to knock that one out in the fall. And then we have the Residential District 3 that's under crack seal right now. That one and District 4, which come the new fiscal year, will bring back a package for crack seal to you. So I'm looking a little bit ahead, but when we move to the next pages, I'll get back to where we are now. And so what the goal is right now, initially we'd said we're trying to hit 1 residential district per year. And going through the budgets and everything, we've kind of upped that and we're trying to do 2 districts on average per year. Obviously it didn't work out this fiscal year, but by the 3rd year, the end of the 3rd fiscal year, our goal is to actually be through all the residential districts. And so we've been pushing and trying to work those around. That worked out because we did have a good heavy year on arterial collectors, so that brought some of our arterials up out of the reconstruct zones, and so it gives us buys us a little bit of time to push those residentials ahead sooner. Go ahead and switch for me, Annie. So these are just the dollar amounts that we started with. So the first one there is the beginning budget. That's actually it showed like $11 million, but that work that was completed on Andy Devine, there's about $1 million that pulled off of what we were anticipating when we came to the budget session. So there's roughly $10.8 million that was budgeted. Of that money to date, we've actually spent about 7.8. You got the actual number there. We spent almost $8 million of that money. And then we also have Residential Crack Seal District 3 is underway, and so that makes up a little over $1 million. The statistics in that right now is that's gonna, by the time we're done with all the work we have going, we're gonna touch just under half of our network between residential and arterial and collectors. We had a good heavy year on arterial collectors. I didn't get the totals on how many miles we've treated, just for a statistic, but we treated a significant portion of our network for arterials and collectors. If you go ahead and switch that for me, Annie. So this one, and I apologize, I don't know why it came out blurry, or at least it looks blurry to me, but this is work that we've actually completed to date. And so you can see all of residential District 1 and the kind of light yellow off to the top left, and then the rest of the arterial collectors that have been completed. We have some more work coming, some fog seals, we got some microsurfaces. Where you'll really see that are those dark orange roads. Those roads were slated for 2 treatments, and one was a microsurface, or I'm sorry, the first one was a rubberized chip seal to help the fractured surface. They kind of broke up. And then we'll come back and we'll put that type 2 micro on top of those, and that'll really smooth those roads out and give you a nice black smooth surface. The reds that are in there, those were reconstructs. We had, like Wallapai Mountain Road was one, we did a mill and fill on that and did that ultra-thin bonded wearing course on it. And then we had a couple that were so far gone, had base failures, we did some pulverize and paves. And those are essentially complete. We'll come back and do final striping because we usually two runs, and that way the first one, the oils and things fade them out, and then we'll put fresh ones back on. That's really temperature dependent, so as we come back into the spring, you'll see some of those items pick up. Talking to our contractor, the microsurfaces right now are scheduled tentatively for April. Between April and May is where we're looking to complete those. So pending any issues, those will be happening at that time. Next slide, please, Amy. So we talked about the residential crack seal districts. In the 2 areas here, you have the pink one north of I-40. That's residential district 2. That actually makes up about 32 and some change center line miles. That's not lane miles, that's actually just a center line of the roadway. And then the blue area below is the residential district 3. And so District 2, our in-house pave press crew is actually on that, and they're actively crack sealing that and prepping that work for chip seal. Like I say, hopefully coming into this fall is our goal. We'll be prepped, it's just a matter of getting everything scheduled up for it. And then the blue one, we'll have the crack seal completed this year, and then we'll be prepping and getting ready for the chip seal. Again, our goal is to do that in the spring, and then we'll add District 4 to that, is what we're planning on right now. Collectively, just for residentials, the chip seal will equate to about 58 miles next year. So we did roughly 30 this year, so we'll almost double that for next year. Go ahead and switch it for me, please, Annie. Oh, and that was the end of it. I had a couple slides here if you had questions on districts for, for how those were split up for the chip seal, but with that, I'll try and answer any questions you may have.
Council? Councilor Saley.
Can you remind me when we're going to do some maintenance on Airway and what that will be?
You're talking Airway, I'm guessing between Andy Devine and Stockton?
Yeah.
So I have a portion around Bank Street I'd like to do in this coming fiscal year. All of Airway, I'd like to stretch it out probably another year realistically, because we did a crack seal project 2 years ago, going on 3. And so by the time we get to that 4th year, the fog seal and the crack seal will be kind of nearing the end of its life. That one, portions of it at the very least, if not all of it, you're going to have some mill and fill and probably an ultra-thin bonded wearing course is what we're looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a
Walker.
couple. Jack, do we keep logs of this when we're It's on. Oh, sorry. Do we keep logs of the oil that goes down, and so we know the percentage of oil that's going down and the chips?
Yeah, so we usually like to yield as the project's going. And I think the question's probably going to be related to the chip seal for Sunland. And so there was a point in the chip seal where they started out, their machine malfunctioned and they didn't yield it. And so there was a period of time where the machine wasn't putting down what it should. Typically, yes, we yield, starting out, we usually yield every truck, and then for oil specifically, those are different. And then as the rock goes on, we're looking at the weight tickets versus how many square yards we've applied to try and catch those.
So we do have that for future reference on which road took how much oil?
Yes.
Okay. My other one was the chips we used. Were they within spec?
They were.
Because these seemed a little dusty, like they maybe sat too long.
No, they met, we actually pulled a gradation on them.
Okay.
And initially we were supposed to get from one supplier, and at the last minute they said they couldn't meet our requirement or our need for volume. And so we went to a local supplier we bought from in the past. They used to actually have an alternative gradation that they had worked out between us and Mojave County when we both used them. And we actually ran the material before the project, and it actually met specs, so
Okay.
met MAG.
Because we got a lot of phone, I'm saying we, I know I got a lot of phone calls and emails on the dust and the chips didn't get picked up, and, so my next question was sweeping program. I know we have a sweeper on order, but it just seemed like I saw sweepers out there today still trying to pick it up in a neighborhood where I think it's been almost 3 months since we chipped.
Yeah.
It's like they're just pushing it around. They're not really picking it up.
So we've, honestly, we've struggled with sweepers, getting parts because some of our sweepers are old. And so we've been trying to keep 2 sweepers on those. There was a period of time, both of our kick brooms were down and we were down to 1 sweeper. We've gone through and the brooms and the elevators and everything have been changed. You see that because you'll see a trail. They'll typically leave a small trail, but we were just working on trying to get those sweepers kept up. That was not entirely unique. Even in past chip seals we've done, you lay down your chip seal and you'll get a thin layer on the top that doesn't fully get embedded, and so those will come off. And we had a over application for a portion with the contract area, but even in the northern half, we're still having concerns, complaints about sweeping, and that was actually a section that Mojave County done, and we were right on our oil and our rock yield. So we continue to sweep with it. Some of it, the rain is our best friend when it comes to dust, because keep in mind, our sweepers don't pick up dust, they pick up larger material. We wet it to try and help get some of that actually encased on the aggregates when we sweep it up, but the rain is actually what helps us. So we went and we put water down. Problem is, as soon as it dries up, if you don't have enough water to actually wash it off the roads and further down into the drainage, then we end up with some dust in those neighborhoods.
Okay. And then will our subcontractors be coming back and taking care of punch list items? Because I see there's some lifting where you can drive down Western and see there's stripes of, there's no chips, you see the old asphalt.
Yeah, so we actually caught a couple of those and we put them in. If there's crack seal or anything needs to be done under them, we would. But keep in mind, Western is one of those that actually gets a type 2 slurry. So those I'm not worried about. If we have any that we find that have bare spots that aren't getting a subsequent treatment, we absolutely would want them to come back and punch list those. And so we do have a punch list of some stuff for them to do when they come back in the spring
good.
already.
All right. That's all I got.
I have a couple as well.
Actually, and we got right, and Vice Mayor, I appreciate, Councilor Walker, your comments about dust, because I'm sure we've all received some complaints about some of the there was a lot of dust in some of the rock that was put down, some of the chips that was put down.
So it's honestly, I mean, some of you guys have been through chip seal and some maybe haven't so much. Unfortunately, and that's where chip seal isn't always loved, is sometimes there is dust and getting the loose chips swept up. We had some issues that we addressed. Someone had actually came back and they sent 2 sweepers up in their area to take care of what they had over applied, and they actually swept their areas, got those cleaned up, and then jumped into the areas we were working as a olive branch, so to speak, for having to come back and take care of that. They stood good on what they had an error in.
We're glad to hear that, because I know the public is glad to hear that too. We are trying to keep that under control and keep an eye on the contractors that we're working with and making sure they're doing their job that they're doing.
Yeah, they've actually been really good to work with. Their project management side, it's not necessarily what this is, but when they had over applied, they sent sweepers up at their cost, which should be, and took care of all that. And then, like I say, to help us out, since we'd been dealing with that side plus ours, they jumped in on the northern half, which we were taking care of all the sweeping on, being that was Mojave County's chip area for us. And so they actually helped us on that when we were fighting our sweepers being down. And so we are back up to 2 sweepers, just still related to pave pres. Right now, we have them focusing on the arterial collectors that got the rubberized chip on them, because same way that rubberized chip, you still get stripping of the stuff that didn't get 50-60% embedment. And so they're going through and cleaning those up, and then we'll be right back into the residentials again.
Thank you, Jack. Vice Mayor?
Hi, Jack. I had a couple questions. When What percentage of work is being done by the contractors, Sunland, and what percentage is being done by the county as far as the road work that we're doing right now?
Mojave County was specific to residential, and that was about a 50-50 split. Initially, Mojave County had indicated they'd be able to do about 25 miles. They did about 15 and a half. I think that was 255,000 square yards is what that equated to. The remainder, the arterial collectors, was all contract work, and early on with Mojave County, their call it their bread and butter is that residential road designation, just because of the traffic and the sometimes the scheduling that's needed. So they were committed to us for residential only.
Okay. And then as far as staffing, where you're concerned in-house, how is that looking for you?
Changes day to day. Between people being sick, and we've had some people that had leave for med reasons, and so we're still continuing on. We're pushing hard on the residential crack seal, and so as you guys know, we kind of have two sides. They're both under the same umbrella, but we have our pave press crew, which is 4 people, and they're taking care of all of the crack seal right now. And then on the general maintenance side, we're still supplementing and taking care of patching, potholing, all the other grading and things they do, but asphalt wise, they're jumping in on the prep work. That being said, we actually just did interviews to try and get some people back. I think we have 3 people down at the moment, and one of those is on the asphalt side, and then we have one person that's out med-wise. So we've been supplementing that crew with the general maintenance crew to make sure we keep that work moving ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Council, any other questions for Jack? Yes, Councilor Saley.
I wanted to ask you if there are any large equipment rental companies that rent out sweepers, that maybe we could add those to the budget going forward to rent some sweepers when you're doing these projects, to have some on hand.
We actually tried, and for the pickup broom, so there's kind of in our world, there's 2 different types. You got the pickup broom, which has the broom on the back and has a conveyor and takes it into a box. And then you got what we'll call a kick broom, and it just throws the stuff off the side of the road. The pickup broom, we could not find a rental. We actually had looked. And I think part of that is just the nature of even the suppliers that we buy from. They usually have demos, and they'll bring them up and you can use them. There are no demos out there even available. So when we were looking at sweepers, we actually went to another agency and looked at one they had because they didn't have a demo unit to view. We did rent, and it actually, we always budget some money for rental, and we used up a lot of that plus more to rent some kick brooms. So the roads that don't have curb, we can push that stuff off the shoulder, keeping it away from people's driveways and stuff. But where we have curb, we've got to have a pickup so we can get it in the truck and get it back to the yard. So I guess in short, yes, we rented kick brooms. We could not locate a pickup broom to rent.
Okay, so they're short all over.
Yeah,
sounds like.
so the one thing that we're looking at right now though is it won't be something we can rent and operate. We just hire a company with an operator to come in. So when we're looking at doing, 60 miles of road, we're absolutely going to need some help, because even if I had all of our sweepers running, that's kind of what we were hoping to do. We have 4 people on the pave press side. Once chip seal's all done, they're done taking care of the traffic control and all the groundwork, because we take care of that with Mojave County. Then they would be able to hop in and start on the cleanup side. That being said, it takes us about a month to get it through a residential district. So they wouldn't start that until a month in. So we'd be supplementing that with the other half of the crew. But again, we're looking at having some contract service with that as well, just because it is a lot if you're looking at 60 miles.
Right, okay, that's good. I mean, because it is true, those are the biggest complaints that we get, are the mess that it makes.
Yeah, understood.
And you had mentioned when you were answering Councilman Walker's questions about quality, and you had alluded to if you catch things, you put it on a punch list. Do we have somebody that's doing quality control for the city, going over everything to make sure we're holding them accountable?
Yeah, so we have somebody out with them pretty much throughout. And sometimes you're spot checking, but because this is such a large project, it's dynamic, it's moving quickly. We actually had people from our crew, namely my ops supervisor for streets, with them pretty much full-time.
Good. It seems like we had some issues here and there with Sunland, whether their equipment was down and they couldn't fix Wallapai Mountain Road, or they couldn't finish as quickly as we had hoped, or problems that you had mentioned before. And I know you said you really like working with their project managers, but are we going to consider maybe taking bids from other companies in the future, just because it does seem like there's been some problems here and there?
Yeah, so and this is just a random bit of information I have talking with those guys. So Wallapai Mountain netted in them a brand new machine. The machine they had was brand new, but even the factory that built it, that type of application, it's a very specific machine. They could not correct whatever issues they were having, and so they actually, like a lemon law, give them a brand new one and took the old one. And I say old, it was only like 2 years old, and so you're talking, $750,000 worth of equipment. So that was absolutely a cursed job. I was wondering if there was some kind of native burial ground out there or something. Throughout, I have never had a job that's had so many problems in a row, just one after the other. So that one, I hope that is an outlier in short.
Me too.
Yeah, absolutely. The what I can say, and not promoting for Sunland, we'll use whoever can provide what services we're after. Sunland is one of our JOCs. We can go to them and work with them pretty quickly as well. But some of the pieces we can low bid, we can go out and look for those other suppliers. Another piece I can give you, and again, it's not a Sunland promotion, but the chip seal was actually subbed to them as well. So parts of the work was subbed out, specifically the chip seal application. And Sunland was tied up. They actually have a crew, but couldn't get it up here in time to complete the work in the time period we wanted to, so they partnered with another company. That being said, they've actually gone, and not as a result of us, just because they have enough demand for it, they've purchased enough equipment to start a second chip seal crew for them. So some of the issues we've seen would probably not return. One, because been through that, and then two, it's going to be a new machine and new people.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Councilor Eric.
Sometimes you have cars parked on the curb and you have an obstructed work area. What happens then? Do you work around it? Do you come back?
I'm sorry, when you're saying when we're sweeping?
No, when you're doing the chip seal.
No, when we're chip sealing, we actually, we go door to door, we hand out notices, and the notices say no parking. And so if there's cars out, our first priority is to go and contact the property owner, the vehicle owner, try and get them moved. KPD comes out and helps us with that, because sometimes they can find the registered owner. And then in this year, to my knowledge, we actually only had to tow one vehicle, and although we could have towed it back and impounded it, to my understanding, we actually just picked it up, did our chip seal, and then put the vehicle back and left a notice on the door for the homeowner.
Thank you. Councilors, anybody else? Jack, once again, thanks for that report. As you were talking, you did mention signage control and traffic control. I know that was one problem in the neighborhood where I live, because there's in Wallach Ranch area, of course, Wallach Ranch Road, you can either go to the north or the south to get out of Wallach Ranch, or of course now through Gene Autry out to Willow. But one issue that did come up is sometimes you weren't warned. Let's say you wanted to go north and you didn't know they were doing the construction up at the north end until you get up there, and then all of a sudden the road's blocked off and you can't get to Gordon. And so I know there was some people had called in complaining about that, and our staff and working with them tried to make corrections on that. So I hope that continues, because I know that's going to happen again.
Yeah, so that job, and not making excuses, it was moving quick. We were supposed to be a 3-week schedule, and we were done in just over a week. So they were moving fast. I think that overwhelmed, or the traffic control company we had was not anticipating that movement. And so quite honestly, not that I want to throw our dirty laundry on the table, but we had some things to work through. And so we were working with Sunland, we were working with Trafficade, was the company that was up here at that time. And they brought up additional crews from other, because they actually have a yard in Kingman, but they brought other crews from Prescott and Phoenix. when we were having those troubles. So they jumped in to help with that, but yeah, we had some troubles to work through with them.
Well, thanks for getting that resolved, and of course, thanks to, your staff and the job doing it. Of course, as we have discussed before, a lot of people do not like chip sealing because of the effect of throwing up rocks. Speed limits need to be lowered so that doesn't happen, but it is still a very cost-effective way, for helping pavement preservation, so.
It is. And I'd like to back up for just a minute and highlight the crew, the people that I have on my teams that go out and do this. Quite honestly, I stand up here and talk to you a lot, but they're the guys and the gals that are out in the field that are knocking this stuff out. And they work hard. They really care about what they're doing. And so I appreciate you actually bringing them into the mix, whereas I had failed on that. But like I say, we definitely are working toward it. Every season will get better. And, if you got any questions, obviously you know where I'm at.
Great. Thanks again, Jack.
Great. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Under department reports, item 7B, legislative bulletin and council direction on legislative priorities. Mr. Cooper.
Yes, sir. So I'll try not to be too chaotic in this. This was originally going to be a Mr. Grady project, and then I got to pick it up when or Mr. Miller, I should say, when Grady left. And I believe we have Tom Dorn. If he's not on, he's about to be on, and might be able to chime in at any point in time. But this is my attempt to do a brief legislative report and to talk a little bit about legislative priorities. Next slide. So the idea is, basically the background is obviously we have the Dorn Policy Group that we've had for a number of years to help represent the city at the legislature, and utilizing, I don't want to read all that, but having multiple folks being able to do the lobbying to express their interest allows for the fluidity of how these bills are processing. And the idea is if we could get a council priority list, that allows us to be able to take those actions. It allows council, because you guys can log in and make your opinions known on any of these bills. You can log in and identify yourself as a council person, which actually gives you more, at least, I don't want to say gives you more stature, but at least they'll pay more attention than some other folks. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but the advice is put your title on there. Next. So this is a list of what the league's policies are. They have a policy sheet that you guys, I believe, may have. The HTTPS, the URL takes you to that website that shows all of the policies. That's just the bullet points of their main discussion points. I don't think I need to go into that, but they mirror what we should be looking at and what the local municipalities are looking for. Next. So these are some of the ideas that we came up with, or kind of tossing things around. They're very broad, but the idea is I think we need to be concerned about sustainable water, the local control, and local control overlaps a number of these, such as the mandates on local government, the preemptions of local zoning laws, some of the economic development issues. So these are ideas I think that we want to make sure we can flesh out a little bit so that we have guidance and direction so you guys know what you guys are looking for, as well as what we can inform the Dorn group. Next. And I think as I'm passing that slide, if you have comments on those legislative priorities, please let me know and maybe we can discuss that more at the end. But that's, like I say, the overall idea of what we're looking at. The current legislative session, I believe, as of yesterday, all the bills have been submitted. I don't know what that total is, but as of the 2nd, it was 1,611 bills. That's a lot, because I'm sure there's more because they had a few more days after that, and Tom may be able to chime in on that. I'm going to cover a few of the bills just to highlight what's going on, and those are those bills that the league talks about. And the league does these conference calls or Zoom calls for various groups. There's an elected officials group, which is the one I listen to. That's on Mondays, and you guys are more than welcome to contact Tom Belshey, and he can get you invites if you want to sit through those. They're about 30 to 45 minutes long, and it talks about the bills that are going to be going through that week. but there's a finance director's phone call that they deal with, the clerk's discussion, the attorneys. We don't have a phone call thing. We email each other back and forth, so that's just what we do. I don't want to read all these. I just want to explain a couple of the bills that are out there. So the House Bill 2570, Senate Bill 1112, they're the exact same thing. They mirror each other. I think the idea is when you have the same bill in the House and same bill in the Senate, it allows it to pass through quicker without any of the mingling that has to go on later. And what this one is there's a lot of parts in the front that sounds great. It says, the municipality can't interfere with the home buyer's right to choose particular features or amenities in their home. But then when it starts going into, it talks about there can't be any kind of requirement for a homeowners association. Not that the city requires homeowners associations, but there's times that either us or other municipalities may want to have homeowners associations. And I believe we have one or two that deal with like landscaping. And I think, as we all are aware, that there's those borders around these subdivisions. Sometimes that responsibility gets dumped onto the city. And I think some of these homeowner associations might be able to pick up some of those things and do some of the weeding that takes place in those areas, as well as stormwater management. And this does allow for that. It talks about preventing municipalities from some screening or walls. And then the scary thing gets to the point where it talks about when you're in a municipal or an urban area with a population greater than 50,000, you can't regulate minimum lot sizes for single-family homes. Talks about square footage or dimensions of the home itself, maximum minimum lot coverage, setbacks. This is going to the issue of the local control and preempting local zoning. So that's the concern there. Each individual city may have different needs. So the idea is this is taking away those cities from being able to react to their specific needs or conditions in whatever zone, whatever area of the city they need to deal with. That bill's out there, and the league at this point is opposing that. I guess that's all I need to say about that. And stop me if you have any questions. It does appear I'm picking on our local delegation. I apologize for that. They just happen to be putting up some spectacular bills right now. 2584 is this residential building material one. And what it says is that any building material that's approved in any of the international building codes that are adopted by these cities nationwide, if it's an international building code or a national building code, that the city has to allow it. And that sounds great, seems like it's an awesome idea, but the problem is there's individual cities or locations or whatever that may have an adverse impact. And I think they talked a little bit about like Flagstaff, because that urban wildlife forest interface where there's maybe requirements to have fire resistant materials and shingles and whatnot. Well, if you can't do that, then they can, and I don't want to say they can put anything they want on their roof, but anything that's approved on the roof that may not have that fire resistant material that would be beneficial to stop preventing the spread of fires, either in the neighborhood or in that community. So that's the idea of why we want to, again, maintain local control to ensure that each city is able to adapt their building codes to fit their needs. This is 2297. It's adaptive reuse commercial buildings. I kind of threw this one in here because we recently had a commercial building that was going to start getting some residential use. This would take that probably a little bit step further and allow basically any kind of commercial building to allow it to, without rezoning, switch over from this commercial to some multifamily uses or mixed use sites or mixed uses. It would require, we would have to allow density standards up to the maximum that's permitted. And again, it's one of those things where it preempts the local planning, preempts the ability to have that local character or the long range planning of the cities. We already, I think, are struggling with sometimes this kind of a thing happening. I know we got some good news the other day about it. But again, it's another step in overturning the local control, trying to make sure your community is the best for your community, as opposed to a statewide standard. And we all think sometimes statewide standards are great, but we're all unique. Next. Sober living homes, 1361. This is a league-sponsored bill, and this is trying to address, there's been a lot of unregulated sober living homes that the Department of Health Services was unable to oversee because of the definition that was listed in the current statute. So there was these were proliferating across a lot of neighborhoods with no municipal ability to control any of that. The state couldn't do anything about it. There were a lot of problems and abuses in the situation. This bill tightens it up. It doesn't necessarily give control to the cities, but what it does is it gives more control to the state Department of Health Services, and it requires those sober living homes, one, to be registered, to have a license, that the state would have to contact the city prior to giving them a license to make sure they're in compliance with all of our zoning and our building codes, to make sure that they're just not sliding under the radar. So this is one that seems like a really good bill that will help allow the city and the state to make sure sober living homes are regulated in a positive manner, to make sure that it appears that they were in the past not being fully above board and not doing what they should be doing. So this is supposedly helping, one, for the residents as well as the community. Next one. This is another good one, 2489, or I think it's a good one, or Senate Bill 1205. It's another short-term rental bill. And what this does is it's going to allow cities, because so many cities are having problems of too many rentals, the high density of the rentals in certain neighborhoods. This is just something that would allow municipalities to set a limit or a cap on the number of rentals within their locality, and establish establish some distancing or distancing requirements. They can't all congregate in one area, and then certain licensing restrictions. Again, I think it helps the local community better, address the situation in their area. Like I say, I know Prescott, or not Prescott, Sedona has, I guess, the number is such a huge number that even their employees, their residents are having difficulty even living in the town. I don't remember what the number I heard was that were short-term rentals, but it was a very significant number. And this just allows the municipalities to address that. This one is, I just saw this morning, and I believe Supervisor Lingenfelter is interested in opposing this one. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I believe that's his position. It's a basin management area, and the idea is it appears to be it's on the surface it looks like it's a conservation for water, but it doesn't really appear to be that. It sets up another basic governmental entity with elected officials that would supersede, override any active non-irrigation expansion areas or active management areas. What it would do is establish that a basin is a basin management area. It would, if you apply for water in that basin or a water certificate, you get to use your appropriated a level of water that you're currently using for X number of years. There's different calculations, but it basically says you get to use this water. It's almost like, kind of like Colorado River water issues, where you get an allocation of however many square or acre feet of water. That's kind of what this seems to be doing. It seems to be more against conservation and protecting certain interests and be able to get their water. It allows for selling and transferring some of these rights. It's, again, I wish I spent more time going into it. I just didn't get a chance. It's something like 17 pages long. It prohibits the state from metering the water or requiring metering of the water. They do have to, those users have to report their water based on an estimation of their pump, the per gallons they can pump, which is very bizarre to me. So you're not getting an accurate number. And any number that you come up with is a protected number. It is not a public record, so no one can find out how much water is being used. So I believe I don't know how far this is on folks' radars. I'm sure it is. I didn't see anything with the league on it, but I would suspect they're going to be against this, and I don't think it's a good bill. Next. I think that's it. I apologize, I did not cover the 1,600 bills. You didn't want to listen to me do that. I haven't read all of them, but I hope I kind of gave you a taste of what's out there. The league, like I say, they kind of hit highlights of what's hitting the committees per week. And some of these have either been in committee yesterday, today, or the remainder of this week. Tom may be able to comment on some of those. I think the plan is that this will be the only time I have to do this. We may get Tom to come in and give these reports much more frequently with much more in-depth and ability than I can. So I guess my question would be, that I know Tina would like, is are these legislative priorities that we kind of highlighted, is this a direction that council would be interested in us going? And if you have anything more particular, we can, or specific, we can address that. Tina?
Well, Carl, thanks for giving us a start on, an update on those. Council, any questions? Yes, Councilor Saley.
Just a few comments. I would like to, on our suggested priorities, be more specific instead of just saying support sustainable water. And I'm plagiarizing from a letter we received from Supervisor Lincolnfelter, but what I'd like to say is that we would prioritize groundwater legislation that ensures responsible use, conservation, and protection of this precious resource. So very specific that we want, we are in support of groundwater legislation that would actually help us versus what Gail Griffin's suggesting in SB 1221.
Gotcha. And I guess those are just big bullet points. I just
but I really like to be specific on that one.
100% agree. That was just my bullet point to get the conversation going.
And then I'd also like to add on to this suggested priorities that as a city, we would oppose any action or legislation that would negatively impact public safety. And you never know what direction the legislation will go, how it will balance out after the next elections. And sometimes you see states that want to take funding away from public safety and give it to a social working entity, which I'm not saying is a bad idea, but I am saying that I would be against anything that would be considered like defunding the police.
And I believe our plan will be is we'll try and bring something maybe next meeting or the meeting hopefully next meeting, if Annie will let me put it on late, because I know our deadline's tomorrow. But have a policy statement for you guys to adopt at the next meeting.
That would be great. I would really like to hear from the Dorn Group with everything going on with the budget, the giant shortfall from the changes that were made to the way they were collecting income tax. So I would love to hear directly from him. And I'd also like to see, we used to go to Phoenix for Legislators Day, and we haven't done that in a few years. And I would like to bring that back. I think it's very impactful to go down to Phoenix once a year and to be involved in that process and sort of touch base.
And I think that's a great idea. I think it was very beneficial when we had Colleen here, because she was able, when this session comes into place, it's a full-time job. And it takes a lot of time and effort. And I think without having a dedicated person, it's difficult to keep all of this as straight as possible. But I think between Tina, and I'm looking at Annie and she's shaking her head no. But between Tom, I know, and Mr. Dorn, I get that too. But we'll try and do what we can to make sure we get as much information out there.
Thank you.
Actually, Tom, are you available?
I am here. I'm here, Mayor and Council. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this. I told Tina Moline that I would be up there. I would have hit the road if I didn't have 3 bills in committee down here. And as you can imagine, the deadline for legislation is on the 16th. So these agendas are just insane, like 30 bills, and next week we expect them to be longer. So that's why I'm sitting out here in front of the Senate. Carl, that was an excellent overview of the major issues. And I'm really excited about what Carl and Tina are talking about here. as far as giving more specific direction. My team, we're always, we're following the legislation. We touch base with everyone at the league and with the delegation, and it's obvious, like with John Gillette, he's been fantastic on 2412, which is the rural transportation projects, and he really pushed that, has really been pushing that, and even spoke about, because I testified on behalf of Kingman in the committee last week, and I brought up, Kingman Crossing, and all of that is so important with the airport and the future inland port, hopefully you're developing there. And so he emphasized that to the entire committee, and so he's done a great job. And of course, I also have questions for all of you. Leo, Mr. Viasucci and Senator Borelli's bills are up. Leo's bill was up in the House today, and it did get through. All the cities were there opposing. This is the 2570 that you showed earlier, Carl. I almost think it's, they say the best defense is a good offense, because of some of the housing issues that some have been pushing, kind of moving the issue a little bit to focus on these bills kind of takes their eye off the ball on what they were trying to pursue on some of the other issues being pushed by more of the more urban entities. As far as, you guys have told me all along that what works for Phoenix and Mesa and Tempe doesn't necessarily work in rural Arizona on the homelessness issues as far as, and also the affordable housing. So I think creating a little bit of chaos and disruption on planning and zoning may serve a purpose to distract some of those that are pushing a different agenda. With regard to starting at the top, the budget, as you all know, and I apologize if you hear jets flying over, the budget, we are at a $1.7 billion shortfall, as you know, over 2 years. Too bad we spent the $2.5 billion surplus last year. That could have fixed a lot of this. However, we are dealing with what we're at. And what the legislators have been, with regard to the clawbacks on projects that you've heard about, and that's one of the things we've been fighting for City of Kingman, and other entities are trying to oppose that. Some of the legislators are talking about if we possibly kick the can down the road, don't repeal the money, but move it into the future year. So as a way of saving some of the projects. So we'll see if that happens or not. The governor is very focused on education issues as far as blaming empowerment scholarships for the budget shortfall that in many, mainly Republicans, even though many Democrats and their constituents use ESAs, but politically they don't want to say that out loud. But that's a talking point that the governor was not letting go of. And so that continues to be, the budget shortfall. I know that is one of the things they're going to consider. Somehow dealing with the whether it's ESAs or the school tuition organizations. Water, and Carl put up the bills on Thursday in the Senate Natural Resources Committee. Senate Bill 1221 is going to be on. That's Senator Kerr's bill, and Supervisor Lingenfelter is absolutely correct. And I would like your permission to oppose that bill on behalf of the City of Kingman. Yes. I'm working regularly with Nick Ponder, who's the lobbyist for Mojave County, and we're working together on all of these water issues. Because as you know, we also represent La Paz County along with the City of Kingman. So we have two concerned players on the western waterfront, if you will. And just as you all know, this bill, Senate Bill 1220, everything is divided into two camps. When Senator Kerr introduced her bill, that was immediately after, and it was timed this way, Governor Hobbs introduced, she sent out the notice that the Gila Bend AMA basin is going to be studied by the Department of Water Resources with the possibility of unilaterally using executive authority to create an AMA. And that went right at the heart of Senator Kerr's district, of which she is, her and her family have been in agriculture there for a long time. So that's how heated this water war is getting right now. So many people like us will be, hopefully you'll say yes, will be opposing Senate Bill 1221. But we'll see where it goes. It's all going to lead to the budget. So you're going to have education funding, empowerment scholarships, rural groundwater protection, and other water uses that are favored more by home builders and others. All of this is going to come together for a very explosive budget discussion because being 31-29 and 16-14 Republican majorities, if one Republican holds out, they're not going to have a budget deal. And when it comes down to water, some people will hold the line on that. So we talked about transportation, planning and zoning, water, elections, as you know. I mean, I know that's a county issue, but that all has to get done this week, or Arizona is in jeopardy of going beyond, so we're told, going beyond the December 11th deadline for the Electoral College from the state to meet in Arizona because of the automatic recounts that have been put in the election statutes over the last few years. So we'll see how that goes. Other major issues, I guess I'll stop and answer any questions on specific issues that you may have, or questions you may have.
Well, Tom, thanks for that report. And we love your background there. We appreciate you stepping out of.
It's freezing here. It's cold. So.
Counselors, any questions for Mr. Dorn?
I do, Mayor.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
Hi, Tom. Thank you again for your report, and thanks for all your boots on the ground. I have a comment, and then I have a question. So the comment is, if you could please give us heads up and notice when we should be at the Capitol or making comments. We sure would have liked to be there with the other cities and towns opposing, when you feel it's necessary. I feel like we need to open that line of communication. And then my question is, what are our local elected officials, Gillette, Biasucci, and Borelli, what are they doing for us at the state in regards to our water? Because I'm not getting a warm fuzzy from any of our elected officials that they're there to protect our water.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, excellent question. First of all, that's good to know that you and others on the council, and I think this priority list will really help. So when, we have the whole next session, the next half, because after February 16th, you're going to start having Senate bills heard in the House and House bills in the Senate. So planning ahead, we'll be able to do that and say, hey, come on down. Here's an opportunity to testify, and I'll work with the chairs of the committees to make sure they know that you're here, you made the trip, and want to testify on behalf of the city of Kingman. So let's do it. Number two, water. To be honest, we're very disappointed that both Senator Borelli and Representative Biasucci haven't introduced the bill that we had wanted them to introduce. And that doesn't mean they don't support what we're doing. We just had hoped that to have both majority leaders, one from Lake Havasu and both from Lake Havasu, the majority leaders to introduce the water legislation. Their reasoning, I don't know. I think it has to do with a lot of being the majority leaders. I think they have a lot of other responsibilities that they have, balls in the air. And do they lose part of their majority portion of their caucus in something that's so heated and confrontational? I don't know that. I'm speculating out loud. But they're both good people, and they represent the district well. They just chose to not put their name on the bills that's most important to us, and it's water.
Well, I thank you for that very carefully crafted answer. I just am, I'm personally disappointed. I don't think that they are representing us as they have promised over the years to represent us. And I feel like they need to hear from their constituents and us as elected officials that the expectation is as they promised. When, you know, Regina left, they promised to pick up the ball when it came to water, and I don't see them doing that. So I would like to see, you know, if we get a meeting with them, if we let them know via correspondence. You know, I'm sure you have some suggestions, but I just wanted to make that known that I myself am personally disappointed that they're not acting in our best interest.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, yes, if you want to, I'll set up the meeting. Let's have a City of Kingman sit down with our delegation in Phoenix. If you were down here, I think that's a great idea. They need to know that how you feel, and especially as we move into the second part of the session, where they will be in the negotiations and the governor is playing hardball on the Gila Bend AMA, active management area. She's at war. And so we need to be, we need to do what we need to do to protect the interests of Mojave County and specifically the city of Kingman. So let me know when I'll set up the meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
Tom.
Thank you.
Sorry, Vice
That's
Mayor.
it.
Tom, once again, thank you for that report and update.
Thank you, and I look forward to making the drive whenever I can. It's just that I can't right now. So,
Actually, Councilor
all
Saley had
good.
another comment. Tom, hold
Okay.
on, are you still there?
I'm here.
Thank you. I think you were asking for direction from us to give you permission to go ahead and fight against SB 1221. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean, I think the slate that Carl put out there, I mean, if you were able to vote on that, if even knowing that, and I think he did an excellent job in identifying the top priorities.
Mhm.
There may be a few more. There was one on renewable energy on lands, and I think that had a direct impact on the city. There are a few more maybe, but if you guys even voted, you know, or made a motion to support or oppose the bills before you, that would be a running start as far as more more engagement that you indicated, Vice Mayor, that you would like to see along with some of the cities that are in more urban areas that are down here all the time.
I think that we can't vote, right? But I saw a lot of
No.
people shaking their heads, especially about 1221, being opposed to that.
Right.
Mhm.
So if we can bring that forward next city council.
What we can do is try to have a policy statement that will then
Right.
allow those.
Okay.
Okay.
So definitely no on the water one, but the rest we will get back to him on so that he can start
Yeah.
actively
And-
fighting
and-
for us. Okay.
Mayor,
Yes, Tom.
Mayor and council, I don't think you need to vote every time on these bills. I think you can just give me direction to go. You're not being held to some legal standard by, you know, Tom Dorn, City of Kingman, signing in to support or oppose a bill. You know, it's not like we're signing a contract. So if a majority of the, you know, if you, or even if, you know, if Carl directed me what to do, I mean, and we can know if we inadvertently support or oppose something, you change your mind on, we can remove it from the system. So, and one last thing, what Carl talked about, you know, getting all of you to sign in on legislation when and if you want to with your name and, you know, Kingman City Councilman, you know, and your name, that's a good thing. I see a lot of elected officials do that. because they're not speaking on behalf of the official entity, but they can give their own opinion instead of putting self, they can put who they are, and that gives credibility to them.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, Carl, thanks. Carl, I know you mentioned earlier, and of course, Tom just reiterated it again. Of course, that's really up to us. I think we need to take that, do that, sign in and comment on those emails and how we feel about it. Counselor Staley?
Yeah, can we ask that those links get sent out to the whole council again with maybe just some instructions just to help
Yeah.
make sure everybody knows how to do that? Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. I'll walk you through it on how to do it from your computer.
Tom, once again, have a good evening, and we'll let you get back to
too.
the busy work down there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Any other questions for Carl on this report? Okay, thank you, Carl. Item 7C, under Department Reports, Police Department Activity Crime Update. Chief Cooper, welcome.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to present you with a police activity and crime status update. With some recent high-profile police incidents, actions that have resulted in some officer-involved shootings, it's created a lot of questions from the community. And I know most of you, if not all of you, have received questions, and I've communicated with a couple of you with some information as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to provide some data and specific to the police department. Those recent shootings, I can't speak about specifics, but there's nothing that connects them together as far as the suspects involved. The Kingman Police Department had 2 officer-involved shootings last year. There was the Sheriff's Office had one about a month ago. I don't know if they had others prior to that. And then the most recent one occurred in Kingman in the city limits, involved the Arizona Department of Public Safety's Get 'em gang unit. And to my knowledge, that didn't have necessarily a gang piece to it, but it involved somebody that was involved in criminal activity that they were keeping an eye on and watching. And we do work in cooperation with them as well. In this particular case, we were not part of this incident. So I have provided to you a 3-page excerpt from our annual report with some crime data and statistics in it. That annual report will be complete within the next week or 2, and so I'll be excited to be able to present that to you in the near future. And my goal here for this department report is that this Cooper won't speak as much as the previous Cooper did. So we'll see how that goes. Depends on all your questions as well. I look forward to your questions as well. So just as a highlight in these statistics, you can look at those later at your leisure, but to me what's notable is there's no significant increase really in any of the categories over the last 5 years. So that is interesting. There's, even in the subcategories, the homicides, they fluctuate a little bit. There's nothing significant that would come up with a reason as to why we're having more of these incidents that are involving officer-involved shootings. But what I can tell you, and this is based on my opinion and my understanding of the incidents and it's my professional opinion and that of my staff, that what has increased that isn't captured in these statistics that we have, but I know them to be true, that the propensity for violence within the calls that we're handling have increased over the last 10, 15 years significantly. So it's an anecdotal answer to you because there's nothing that captures that necessarily. We just know that a call 15 years ago, or longer perhaps, might have been handled, one officer could go because the cooperation of the person involved in that crime was of such that one officer could handle that. Well, that dynamic, that element has changed over the last several years. So there's more opportunity. People are less likely to cooperate and to be non-compliant. That has increased significantly. So for us, we've modified our response into those calls over the last several years as well. We continue to modify our response to these types of calls where there's at least 2 officers that are now going to go to those calls, sometimes 3, just because we are aware that the propensity for violence or someone being non-compliant is increased. It's much more likely than it ever was in the past, which can lead to different things happening. But when you have 2 or more officers show up, it also establishes an officer presence that makes people less likely to be non-compliant just by a show of force as well. So that's something that based on opinions. Everybody probably has an opinion on what causes that. My belief that it's based on socioeconomic factors and pressures that are facing the community worldwide, nationwide as well as that. So it's increased that incident where that's happening. There's also increases in mental and emotional health. There's a lot of challenges that we're faced with. We see an increase in that. We see an increase in vagrancy on the streets. We're also having more calls involve mental health issues where we call on our partners. We have a third-party partner in Taros where they will come and respond, and we kind of hand these people off to them because we're not necessarily equipped to provide long-term or care. We just provide an opportunity and transition them into people that are trained into care, get them into mental health training and things that can help them. So that's my opinion on what's gone on with all these other shootings, that all these things contribute to just an unstable environment, you know. And unfortunately, law enforcement, first responders are the ones that see the symptoms of that. So, and that might be all I have to share with you unless you have specific questions. Again, the annual report will be out within 2 weeks. It's something we like to have out within the first couple of months of the year and then present that to you. But these statistics are the crux of what we talk about in that report.
Carl, in that report coming up, will there be, for example, deaths caused by traffic accidents, traffic crashes? Will that be in there too?
So it will be. If it's not, we'll make sure that the fatal data is in there. Yeah, because there's been high profile.
I know it's not in this brief report here, but I'm hoping that comes forward.
I can say this too in regards to the acts of increase in violence potential. There's been a high level of attention being paid to young adult, teen violence in the Valley area. We have seen an increase in that as well. It's not necessarily captured in our data, but I know that it's occurring, that the attitudes of those that are choosing to operate in criminal behavior is increasing. We see it in our school resource program. We know that there's a group of, I'll say, young adults and teens that are involved in vehicle theft currently going on, and we're aggressively pursuing that. So that's something that's a surprise. I can't give a specific reason as to why it's happening, but I know it's something we're faced with, and we're making adjustments to deal with that.
Okay. Councilor Savage.
Hi, Chief Cooper. I got a question for you. From 2019 to 2023, citations and warnings have both went down at least 40%. I drive around daily. I see people speeding all over the place, and sometimes I wish I was an officer, but I'm not. Can you explain why that went down so much, especially with the increase in population?
Well, it's not because the violations aren't occurring.
Okay.
I won't even present that to you. I do know that it's based on staffing levels, and that they're currently, the way we're still handling the same amount of calls that we were handling 10 years ago, 15 years ago, with less people, which we're seeing improvement there, by the way. Appreciate your support in regards to what you guys did in regards to that last year. So that limits the officers' ability, I'll say free time, where they're not obligated handling an investigation or writing a criminal report. So, but the expectation is whatever free time or unobligated time that they should fill it with traffic enforcement. But I do know that it's limited, but that's not very available to them at this point in time. And we also have a traffic unit that I have one officer that's responding to. So as we fill and replace our positions, we'll restaff that, because we currently have positions for three traffic motor officers to be out and about to traffic, but I have one officer that's handling that part of that. And he's busy with traffic crashes because those continue to be steady as well.
Okay. Councilor
Mayor.
Saley.
Oh, go ahead.
I just have a couple of questions. The biggest concern that I keep hearing from our constituents, the concerns are the traffic. As mentioned, traffic seems very unsafe these days. You can't get on our roads and not see people passing in residential, people speeding, just in general, and not just barely speeding, but they're really speeding. It feels very unsafe. And then the concerns about the cars being stolen, so many cars all of a sudden are being stolen. And then the shootings, and the shootings, even the ones that occur just outside of the city limits, of course, it's hard to say, well, there's, you know, a line there. I mean, every shooting that happens within this area, I think feels as though it's happening in your home, in your backyard.
It's our community.
It's our community, right. So people are very concerned about what appears to be a sudden increase in very serious crimes. And so I'm wondering what can be done? What are we going to do to try to bring some of those crime levels down and to stop these cars from being stolen or to get the traffic under control? What is our plan going forward to do that?
So thank you for that. And I share those same concerns because those things are happening. And I feel like I'm blaming everything on staffing, and it's not always that, but that is the big issue. That's the big elephant in the room that we're struggling with, because that is impacting our ability. So I have to prioritize service calls and how we're going to do that. You know I've talked to two of the Call the Public folks. I've communicated with them about those, and I appreciate them bringing it up to you. And I have no doubt that what they're telling us is true. Mm-hmm. It's the availability of officers that I have to assign into that area when there's other things going on. We just can't do that. Okay. So moving forward, though, we are building, we are rebuilding, and we have some good news in our staffing situation. Things are looking up. And as those positions fill, then I can fill in my traffic unit, and they're available to handle those things. We have a street crimes team that currently isn't staffed, but their function and their purpose and mission is to focus on those street level issues like the stolen vehicles. We are, they can pivot. They don't have a set call load, but they can respond to the hot button issues and be working on and coordinate with other agencies. I can tell you now, in regards to the recent stolen vehicles, and the people involved with that are communicating through the different apps. They're not necessarily a gang, but they're coordinating what they're doing based on stuff that's on other social media sites, and it's kind of a trend, things that have gone viral. Never thought I'd be saying those words in my professional capacity, but that's what the reality of what we're doing. But something to help us is we are working and collaborating with the Sheriff's Office, their investigators, the State Gang Task Force. They have detectives as well as their Criminal Investigations Division are all people in town. We're all working on those stolen vehicle things, and with their help, we have been able to arrest some of those people, those young adults or teens have also been involved in some other criminal behaviors, some robberies, some aggravated assaults, and some shootings as well. So we are making a headway in that. So I hope that answers you. But that's our goal. We have weekly meetings as an agency, and we prioritize our response. Captain Zach is responsible for assigning patrol resources, and we do that weekly because it kind of tweaks. So we'll know, okay, you know what, let's take a couple hours today and let's focus on, we'll say Seneca, because that's a recent object, so we'll spend some time there. But it's all about consistency, because we can show up for a little while and then we leave, just as Mrs. Gilman expressed, and then the problem happens again when it comes to traffic.
Right. So just a follow-up on that, will we be seeing some things in the upcoming budget to help you tackle crime? Maybe we've talked in the past about the fact that we haven't added any officers in 20 years, and it's certainly got to be time to increase the size of the police force in general, just to keep up with the growth.
Correct. Yeah, we are working through a plan and how to present that to you.
Okay. So. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Vice Mayor.
Hi, thank you for being here this evening. My question, shortly after I got on council, it appeared that the need to have collective resources for those that needed assistance, whether it be housing, whether it be, whatever assistance. There were groups, they were working kind of independently of each other. So I'm wondering if, and I think Joel Freed was involved in that from the beginning as far as bringing all those resources together. Do you guys feel like you have a current list of resources that when somebody is in need of a service, that you're able to find them assistance, depending whether it's drugs, mental health, you know what I'm saying?
I do, and I remember the discussion, and I don't know where that's at with those other groups, but I do know we have a resource list and contact card information that the officers are expected to carry to have available to be able to present to folks as we run into them and a need
Okay.
presents itself. So
I knew it was dated. I'm just hoping that it's continuing to be updated and it's relevant.
So I would say I need to see how it is updated as you're bringing it up, because I would want to know before I told you it's updated. But I do know we have information available.
Okay.
Because the officers are expected to have that in their vehicles.
Okay.
If someone shows that they are willing to take advantage of those resources.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Council, any other questions? Yes, Councilor Eric.
Yes. Today I had a show around by Chief Cooper of our police station, and let me just say I was impressed with what I saw. Chief Cooper really does run a good ship with the resources he does have. And I feel like it's very promising for the future, especially with the shakeup with the new restructuring. Besides that, I was wondering, with the data that you sent us, could you also include suicide data?
You had asked before, it sounds familiar when
Yeah.
Officer Manager Miller was here. I will find out. I will say with I'll find out what we can do.
Okay.
I know I can tell you how many death investigations we've done, and they're captured within that, and there isn't anything that specifically identifies
Just,
as suicide, so.
Just collecting a little bit of information, and whatever
yeah,
you have.
whatever I have, I'll provide it
compile
to
it
you.
with everything else and put it together.
Yes, will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Chief, couple different things. Well, actually, you had mentioned, of course, staffing. I know it's looking good. How many officers are we still down right now?
So thank you for asking. We're currently 7 down.
Okay.
2 months ago, we were 10 down. So we've recently hired 3, and 2 of those 3 are lateral officers, which means they're certified in the state. So they're coming back to us as a result of the dedicated commitment that you guys made for us last year. So I do appreciate that. We're seeing some positive results of that. So I have 7 down. We have some people in our background process that look promising, so that's a nice change. I would just add, in addition to those vacancies, I have 8 staff, what I call ineffective, meaning they're on light duty or FMLA, or they're on military deployment, or they're in the police academy. So that's just accurately represented. So I'm down 7, but I also have 8 others that aren't being used full capacity yet. So that does have a significant impact on what we're doing. But it was recently described how we're operating as lean, but yet accomplishing a lot. And I would say we are operating lean. But I got to say, with all the issues and the challenges, we're not ignoring them, but I have an amazing group of people that are doing good work, and they're working very hard, tirelessly. And my goal as we hire people is they don't have to continue to work so hard, meaning on their days off. That's, for me as their chief, that's my ultimate desire for them, to keep them well, is so they can enjoy their off time. But in the meantime, they're doing great work. Very proud of what they're doing.
Well, and obviously we're proud of them too as a council. And thanks again for all that they're doing in their jobs. And obviously we want them to be as safe as possible too.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, did you have anything more?
I was just going to ask about recruitment and how that's, I mean, you did mention you brought on some new officers, but I'm just wondering, when you're going to these recruitment events, have we done what we needed to do to make Kingman an attractive place for those people to consider?
I would say yes. I mean, there's always room for improvement, but we're trying to be very fiscally responsible and put our money where it's worthwhile.
Sure.
There's several billboards there's one on the way to Bullhead City, if you've seen it. We'll see another one on I-40, and it'll have our recruitment. We've taken some new, I'll say, glamour shots, in the last 6 months or so, to try to make them, useful, catch people's attention. So you'll see those on those billboards, catching people on the freeway. We do the hiring expos. We went to one last week. I think it was in the Phoenix area, and it was geared towards law enforcement. And the recruitment team that went down there, led by Sergeant Nick Schmitz, had positive things to say. People were interested in Kingman. They like the geographical region. The pay attracts them. The community size attracts a lot of people. And that's who we're trying to identify them as well. Currently in our background, one person, he's a police officer in another state. He's in our background process, so that would be considered a lateral. We have to get him laterally certified in Arizona. We also have at least 5 others that over the last year and a half that were from other states that are lateral officers, so they don't have to go to a police academy, but we do have to put them through our little process so they can become Arizona certified. And that's a process. That's a lot of work that the recruitment team and our training team does. And that's been consistent for the last at least 3 years, if not longer. We've constantly been doing that, you know, working through and making sure that we're reaching out to people. And we're trying to recruit through our social media. You know, there was a video recently that we were able to do through the IACP that really highlighted some things that we were doing. We were hoping maybe that attracted some people to us as well. So, and I've given permission to the recruitment team to think outside of the box. They can spend some money. We do have a budget, and they have been doing that, trying to do things different. And we are in the periodicals, you know, the magazines. I don't know how effective those are, but we're trying to get our brand out there. So are other agencies as well.
Of course.
There's other agencies doing the same thing, so it's kind of a competition. It's funny to see if you're watching. Somebody does something and then somebody else will do it, even locally with the 3 municipalities in the sheriff's office. So, but if anybody's watching, the Kingman Police Department is the best place to work or listening to us.
There you go.
Yeah.
Got to put a plug in, Chief.
Thank you. That just all sounds like great news, so thanks.
Counselor Eric, I know you had another question.
When's the annual calendar coming out?
So the annual report?
No, calendar. I was making a
Oh,
joke.
calendar. That's a good idea. Okay. I'm with you. I see what
I
you
just
did.
wanted to also have you kind of reiterate a point you made to me while we were going through the tour. You mentioned that a high percentage of your officers were born and raised in Kingman. And then we also talked about how you had a minimum age of 21, which kind of creates a little gap post-high school.
Correct.
And that your last contact with the students is junior high, and which those programs that you have during the summer are a huge success. And kind of just explain that process.
Sure.
And maybe you mentioned a quick little thing where it was a sentence that you talked about where maybe you could bring someone in from high school to have them do like grunt work, not grunt work, but like
Right.
stuff where they're not a sworn officer yet to kind of keep
Sure.
them around.
Appreciate it. Yep.
And then eventually get them into the police academy to be sworn officers
So-
at 21.
We used to have an Explorer program. It's gone dark based on staffing. But the idea with the Explorer program is kind of like a scout, Boy Scout, Girl Scout program. We put them through the paces. We have a post. And then the next phase after that, or that would take them through high school. We also have the Junior Police Academy, which is, I call it a flagship program we've had every year, where we have either 2 sessions. Last year we had 1 session, and I don't know what it's going to be this year. It depends on scheduling with the schools. But we're able to catch middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students and expose them to a quasi-military structured police experience, leadership abilities, and it's something that we still have. The only contact we have after that, or the interaction, is through the school resource program, which we currently have 2 active school resource officers, and once we get full staff, we'll have, I believe, 4. That's the idea. But they have interaction with the students, and there's law-related education that they share, but that's limited with the students. But once they graduate high school, say they're 17 or 18, we have nothing in place for them until they can be of legal age where we can hire them or consider them for hiring. You have to be 21 by the time you graduate the police academy to be a police officer. So something you guys helped us with last year and support us with, we're providing those police aid positions. So we haven't filled those 2 police aid positions, and we're working on doing that. The police aid, is a part-time position, and we have room for 2. And the idea is to capture somebody that's 18 outside, just out of high school, that still wants to go to college, and they can have a part-time job with us, and we would provide them a uniform. They could do some simple things to prepare them for a career in law enforcement, and that's something that we're working on filling this year before we move into the next fiscal year. And that's something where they can do simple things, but they would do private property crashes, some simple theft reports, graffiti reports. They can help out with traffic control, crime scene processing, kind of a force multiplier for us as well. And it would, hopefully, the idea would help onboard them, that they would want to further their career with us and stay with us. So I think that answered all of those. You had 3 things in there. I wanted to make sure I covered them all. So I appreciate
You
that.
nailed it. Thank you.
Counselor Staley, one more, huh?
Cherish reminded me that about the recruiting, and last week we found out that there is money in this year's budget for for recruiting and giving potential hiring bonuses or relocation packages. And I just wanted to make sure you're getting a piece of that because I think that could help you get more laterals. So
Yes.
that was kind of new information we found out. And Tina, if you could just give him some of that money, that'd be great.
I plan on getting whatever I can, but I know we're working out the requirements of that, because there's got to be requirements, and there's got to be, you know, things put in place of how long when you start to pay these things and work out, because you don't want somebody to get it and then they're gone, and if, you know, however long that works. But I know it's there and we're working on it, and as soon as it's made available, I will be happy to promote that on our recruitment material.
Yeah, I was just going to share that Krista and I have visited about it. Krista had shared already that she's reached out with Chief and that they are working out a plan for that. So that will be in the works and probably launched very soon. Thank you.
Okay. Chief, thanks again for that report.
I think I did talk more than that.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
And of course, thanks to your staff and your officers and all that they do.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Item number 8, announcements by mayor, council members, and city manager. Our acting city manager, Tina.
I believe the vice mayor and the mayor are going to cover the topics I was going to cover tonight, so I look forward to hearing about them. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Walker. Councilor Savage.
Nothing tonight.
Councilor Ward. Councilor Staley. Councilor Eric. Okay. Vice mayor.
Oh, well, thank you. So I wrote this so I wouldn't mess anything up. Last month, I was very honored to represent the city of Kingman on a visit to the Port of Los Angeles with District 1 Supervisor Travis Lingenfelter, Economic Development Director Bennett Bratley, along with a delegation from New Mexico and Arizona. Other attendees included a representative from Washington on behalf of the DOT, or Department of Transportation, director from UC Berkeley's PATH, and our hosts, the leadership from the Port of Los Angeles. We were there as a result of Kingman's recent designation of an I-40 trade port corridor to learn about the port, how it operates, the challenges they face both during COVID and now post-COVID. This meeting was the first step in which to bind the corridor from LA to Albuquerque to the massive power of the Seaports complex in Kingman is a very exciting, we're in a very exciting position to further support the Trade Port Consortium, which is a group of private companies that we think will provide the real business foundation for the project. So this includes folks from trucking, distribution, manufacturing, and risk capital investors. It was a great trip. I learned a lot. I was thankful that the mayor couldn't go, so I could go, but I know he would have enjoyed it. We took a tour of the port from the boats, from the water on a boat, and that was very interesting. And we did get the ear of the Port Authority director, second in command. So all in all, it was great. It was great to network with people that are working on this project. This particular group is going to be applying for some very, very large federal funding, and we're just on the cusp of more exciting things for Kingman. So I was grateful. So thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to go.
No, thank you for doing that and representing Kingman. Anything else? Okay. I think all of you saw the email that Annie sent out today as far as a news release, and of course this went on our website also, as far as Catholic Charities switch focus to affordable housing on the Route 66 motel. And I just wanted to once again read part of that, or if that's all right, and I think bring that to the attention of, again, that as a council we are concerned, and that we have been able to, with help of staff, talk to Catholic Charities, and is switching the focus on that. Instead of being transitional, but it'll be more affordable housing. And so, actually, I don't need to read that. I would encourage everybody to read the news release that Annie put out. And but it is a great positive move, I think, and Catholic Charities is being able to, after talking to the state, and their funding came from the state, they've been able to realign that and make it more for affordable housing. So I think that's a great win for the city of Kingman and for our residents. I do want to mention also, as on a fun note, that this Friday, February 9th at sunset around 6:15 at the Visitor Center, And I'll read the news release on this one. It says, mark your calendars for a special Valentine's themed dedication preceding Valentine's Day and National Giving Hearts Day. The City of Kingman will illuminate the heart-shaped sign with an arrow through it, adding a romantic touch just in time for Valentine's Day. And that is positioned just 200 feet west of the Route 66 drive-through shield and facing Dunn Motors. So a new sign that has been restored, and of course the shape of a heart, and of course emphasizing Kingman and Route 66. And so I would encourage all of us to go to that. It should be a fun evening. And I think the activities are actually from 5 to 7, and of course around dusk is when it will be lit up. So, and then also along those same lines, our Parks Department on that same evening from 5:30 to 9, we'll be hosting a Cupid Family Bingo Night at KAOL, the Kingman Academy of Learning Middle School gym. And of course, there's a nominal registration cost of $12, but it should be a fun night. And of course, once again, another fun activity that our city is sponsoring. Besides that, I don't have anything. And of course, once again, I thank all the service that is done from one city resident to another as individuals and serving, looking for ways to serve each other. And with that, we have our last item on our agenda, and that would be council requests for future reports and updates.
I have a couple.
Yes, Councilor Walker.
I've been approached by several members of the Economic Development Committee. They right now are meeting once a quarter, and that isn't a very important committee. And I think it might have been our last management didn't want to deal with it. I know it's a lot of work for staff, but this is an important committee that we need them to meet more than once a quarter, I feel. So I'd like to maybe discuss that in the future, see if we can get that back to once a month.
Okay.
That's my first item. Second item, this was talked about today in the general plan meeting, and I think Carl might have spoke a little bit about it at the House, but HOAs. You know, we don't have a lot of HOAs here, but for future development of some of these bigger subdivisions or any new subdivision, I think the city, we might want to talk about this as a council. A lot of their green belts are used for their water drainage and their walking paths. There's picnic areas, there's little play stations. And what they do in the larger communities where these subdivisions are going in is they utilize that for drainage, but they put this in, they form an HOA, because the city, we can't handle any more parks to maintain it. I mean, everyone wants to give us land, but they want us to take care of it. These HOAs can maintain the green belt, which is basically their drainage. So that solves two problems. And then when the builder's done, they move on. This HOA, for a nominal fee, they maintain the parks, they mow the grass, they keep the lights on, the play areas. And my wife and I own a house in Chandler, and our HOA fee down there is $168 every quarter. And we have 9 parks in our community. So there's tons of walking paths. And I think as a city, you know, we're starting to see these subdivisions. They all want to give us land for parks, but how can we keep maintaining them? So I think it's something we need to look at for the future.
I see notes being taken, so.
Okay, so.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Talk about that in the future. That's all I got.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, well, without further discussion, and I don't think there's any going to be any complaints, we are adjourned.
Yeah, we got.